everybody! Today I'm going to show you the recipe for my delicious rhubarb cream pie. It is so good. I'm also going to give you tips and advice for growing your own rhubarb. Can't wait for you to join me. Hey guys, I wanted to start this video from outside right by my rhubarb plants because before we make our pie, I feel like there's some things you need to know about rhubarb. How to plant it, how to grow it, how to harvest it. Of course, you could easily get your rhubarb at the grocery store, but because this channel is all about saving you money, I want to talk about the economic benefits of growing your own rhubarb. As many of you know, I have a love affair with rhubarb. I love rhubarb. I love the taste of rhubarb. I love pretty much any baking that has rhubarb in it, but there's a lot of other reasons why I like rhubarb. One of them is that it is pretty much one of the only fruits that gives you a constant crop for months and months of the year, and it's a perennial that comes up again and again. So if you are a newbie to gardening and you don't know what a perennial is, it's basically something you plant and then it dies back in the winter, grows again in the spring. You don't have to keep buying a plant every single spring. So in that regard, rhubarb is actually really economical. When you think that you could buy a rhubarb plant for about the price of buying a bunch of rhubarb at the grocery store, and you could grow it yourself and you could get at least kind of 5 or 6 crops off of that plant every single year for decades, I mean, that is pretty darn economical. The other reason I like rhubarb is because it's one of the first crops here in Canada that is going to come ripe and you're able to eat. The only thing that comes up sooner in my garden than I can eat is chives. So we're gonna cut this rhubarb today to make some pies, and it's late May here in Ontario, and I will be cutting rhubarb off of this plant until at least July or August. Some people only take the first crop off of their rhubarb and then they claim that the next crops aren't as good, so they just let it go to seed for the rest of the season. I think this is a big waste. If you're doing that, consider continuing to harvest your rhubarb for months throughout the season. I find it tastes just as good the second, third, or fourth crop, to be honest. Rhubarb is also literally no fuss. You plant it, it grows. There's no like special watering considerations. I literally never water my rhubarb. It doesn't require any sort of pruning or anything other than the fact that you're harvesting the rhubarb off of it. Rhubarb is also incredibly healthy for you. I don't know if you guys know about the health benefits of rhubarb, but it has a really high source of vitamin K. So vitamin K helps with your bone growth, with blood clotting, and you can get your daily value of vitamin K just by having like a cup of stewed rhubarb. It also is packed full of fiber. Anything high in fiber is going to be really good for you and also help prevent certain types of cancers. But that's not all. Rhubarb also has calcium and vitamin C. Now, a lot of you are either you like rhubarb or you don't. If you're watching this video, you probably like rhubarb because you want to know how to make a really good rhubarb pie. I don't know if it's an acquired taste. I'm not sure if it's a case of you either like it or you don't. A lot of people just like it with sugar. I'm going to be honest here and tell you that my kids will just eat the stalk. So we will pick this rhubarb. When we're picking this rhubarb, they'll all ask for a stalk and they'll go run away onto the swings and they'll just munch on a stalk of rhubarb. Don't let them eat the leaves. They are poisonous, but eating just a stalk of rhubarb is perfectly fine for your kids. It doesn't have to be cooked. If you are looking to plant rhubarb plants, you need to make sure they're in the right spot. So rhubarb generally likes a well-drained soil, so don't plant them in a place in your yard that collects water. They like a fertile soil, so a lot of people have rhubarb plants at the edge of their garden or near their compost heap. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever tried planting a rhubarb plant and it just didn't do well. I have totally experienced this. When we planted our rhubarb initially, it did nothing. And then we actually built a new home next door and brought our rhubarb over with us, and it grew amazingly well just next door. So if you've had trouble with rhubarb, try planting it in a different part of your yard and see if it likes it better there. Okay, harvesting your rhubarb. You'll know your rhubarb is ready to harvest when the stalks are sort of at least a foot long. 12 to 18 inches is a great length for your rhubarb stalks. You don't want to let them get too overgrown before you pick them, because it'll be a little more bitter and less tender. When you're taking your rhubarb off, a lot of people just cut them off at the bottom with a knife or scissors, but the best way and the healthiest way for a rhubarb plant is to pull back and just yank the stalk off. And then what you want to do is trim the leaves off, because you obviously can't use the leaves, or I shouldn't say obviously, some people may not know that if you're not familiar with rhubarb. There are lots of plants that kind of look like it, like Swiss chard, that we definitely do eat the leaves, but rhubarb, do not eat the leaves, okay? Warning! So you don't need to take all of the stalks off of the rhubarb when you're harvesting it. Just take off the stalks that are the right size, and then you'll see that there are lots of little shoots there. And in a couple weeks, those shoots will be nice and big and you can harvest them. All right, now that I've told you all about rhubarb, let's get started making that delicious pie. If you've picked your rhubarb from outside, you definitely want to give it a good wash or a rinse before you cook with it. This is also probably a really great idea even if you're buying it from the market or the grocery store. To do that, I use a really deep sink and I simply dump the rhubarb in and fill it with water to soak. When chopping your fresh rhubarb, I like to use a serrated knife. You can use a chef's knife if you want. I just find it's really slippery when it's wet. And please don't just do one stalk of rhubarb and start chopping that. It will take you literally forever. Take your rhubarb, line up a big handful, and away you go. Now, you can use frozen rhubarb for this pie recipe, just like most rhubarb recipes, or you can use fresh. It's totally up to you. So the first thing we want to do for this rhubarb pie is make our crust. Now you can use a frozen crust that you got at the store, or you can do homemade like I'm going to put into this pie plate. It doesn't really matter. I like homemade better. People tell me, Jen, what's the secret to your pie crust? And my secret is it's not really a secret. I just use the recipe on the back of the Crisco can. Funny story about that. A friend of ours when I was growing up, my mom's friend, Joan Tompkins, and my friend as well. Joan, if you're watching this, hello. We had her apple pie once at her house and we said, Joan, what is the secret to your delicious pie crust? And she said to us, it's just the recipe on the back of the Crisco can. So that's what I do. The recipe on the back of the Crisco can that I have has recipe for 5 pastry pie crusts. So I make 5 at a time. I don't make 5 pies at a time. I make 5 crusts at a time, and I pop the crust in the freezer. So you can see here, I have my crust in a disc in a milk bag, a Canadian milk bag that milk comes in. If you've watched my videos on reducing single-use plastics, you will understand what I'm doing here. It was just in a milk bag tied with a elastic from broccoli in the store. And that's how I store it. And then you simply get it out to thaw. It should thaw within an hour or two, to be honest. And cold dough is so much easier to work with and to roll out than warm dough. So even if you're making this dough and wanting to use it right away, pop it in the freezer or the fridge to cool it down before you try to roll it out. So here we go. Let's get rolling. Trick or life hack, if you suppose. You can see this is kind of an irregular shape, but that's okay. For me to know if the pie crust is rolled out to the right size, I just take my pie pan, because all of my pie pans seem to be different sizes. I pop it in the middle and I see, is it the right size? Will it have enough to come up on the sides? Yes, it will. So I'm done rolling. Let's trim the edges and pinch up the sides. To my crust, I am adding 4 cups of my chopped rhubarb. love that smell. Our rhubarb is in, now we're going to add the creamy custardy filling. For the filling, we need 1 cup of white sugar, 1/3 of a cup of white all-purpose flour, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. That's your dry ingredients. Just give them a little toss together to mix them. And we add to that our wet ingredients. 1/2 cup of white milk and 1 beaten egg. Whisk that all together. And pour that over your rhubarb. Next, we'll be making the crumble topping for the pie. Now, this is a crumble topping that I use on many different pies, not just this rhubarb pie. You can use this crumble topping for a peach pie, apple pie, blueberry pie. It is so versatile. It doesn't even need to be a pie. I use this as a topping for a fruit crisp as well. That's not inside pastry, but it's just fruit and the crumble topping. It's very delicious. So we need 1/2 cup of white all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of dark brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and those are our dry ingredients, so I'm just going to toss them together a bit with a fork. And to that, we're gonna cut in 1/4 cup of butter. Now by cut in, I mean just breaking up the butter, kind of like this. I just use a fork, but if you have a pastry blender, you could use that, or a couple knives. So you want to stir that until it's a fairly mealy consistency. Take your crumb topping and sprinkle it on top of your rhubarb and custard mix. It looks so delicious even before I put it in the oven. Put your pie in an oven that has been preheated to 450 degrees for just the first 10 minutes. Then reduce the heat of your oven to 350 degrees and bake for a remaining 30 minutes. Just look at that pie out of the oven. It smells so good and I cannot wait to try a piece. You want to make sure you let this pie cool for at least an hour or two before you dig into it. There you go, folks. I hope you liked this recipe. I hope you liked my advice about rhubarb. I'm gonna link you to some more recipes of mine if you're interested in watching those as well. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. For the least, this is Jen.